Hey guys, welcome back. Again, this is Mike with Benchmark Tool and Supply. This is part 2 of our deep dive into the Topcon SmoothRide system. We're going to really get into the data processing piece today. I am back with Tyler with GSC Surveying and Levi with Benchmark Field Services. So we're going to dive right into this here. So data processing, that's the next step. So as a quick recap, Tyler, why don't you just jump in? How did we get to this point?
Once you finished your scan and the system's actually downloaded from the RDM1 to your computer, you get a file that is just the raw scan points. It has all the information, the GPS information as well as the IMU. And we'll bring that into our processing system, or at least that's what we end up doing. We'll run it through a surface clearance to remove all the noise points, the erroneous points that actually don't have anything attached to them. And we'll pull it into Magnet Collage, and that is where we're actually able to combine our static base data with our RDM1 moving GPS unit, GPS and scanner.
Okay. And what program do you guys use, Levi, to get that done?
We're running Magnet Collage is where you actually create the scan, where it combines that post-process data from the GPS, the scan data, combines all that together. The surface clearance actually takes place in RDM1 Collect, the stuff we use to collect the data in the field. Surface clearance is unique because you can actually set some variables there, so how high above that surface, and it just goes through there and looks and says, hey, this is higher than a tenth from the average surface, so let me take it out. It clears out all your vehicles, trees, people on the sidewalk, stuff like that. So.
Gotcha. Yeah, and you talked about that a little bit with me, kind of clearing up that noise. I kind of want to go back to the water things that interested me. And when you run it through water, is that something that data you can clear up running through water? So say, for example, you hit a puddle. Maybe you're not running in like a road that's covered in water, but you hit a puddle. Is that going to be too much to clear up, kind of post-processing?
With something that small, it's not so bad. Where it became an issue for us is that when we were in constant water, and so there was always something right there, and so it looks like a surface to the software. So it's trying to keep it in so it doesn't remove something you need.
Gotcha.
And adding to that, as far as the scanner collecting data that you've got to clean up. So the nice thing that they've done with the software, so say you pass a car on your first pass. I know in our first video we talked about scanning multiple times. If you go past a car one time and you go past it again and the scanner doesn't see it, it takes that data out for you. So it's got some built-in intelligence to make this data processing that we do a lot easier for us. So
you can do a lot within the software. You can change the intensities, you can change colors. And Tyler, you want to just dive into some of the tools that are available when you start looking at that, when you start processing?
Yeah, so LiDAR scanning in general, it's a little bit unique compared to regular surveying or terrestrial surveying with an actual base and rover, where the LiDAR has a return. So it hits the object, and however much light is bounced back to the LiDAR sensor is that intensity level. Dirt's going to have a different intensity level than asphalt or a reflective surface would. And so that lets us filter out things. For example, you have a road that's covered in a bunch of tar strips where they've sealed the cracks on that roadway. You could actually change the intensity value to where only those cracks show up so that you can draw those in and actually create a model for just purposes of knowing where they are.
that also comes into scan too if you're going across a concrete bypass. So we're not going to pave anything on the bypass. It's going to stay the way it is. It'll actually show us where that bridge begins and ends. By looking at intensity, you'll see the red, green. It also picks up striping and stuff like that, so we can go back and verify that the scan's in the right spot, stuff like that.
Okay. So I guess we'll start at this point. You've got your data, you're looking at it, and you begin to clean it up. Once you get that data clean, where I've taken out all the noise, I've put the details into the scan that I want, what would be the next step in the process?
After everything's cleaned up and been processed, then you're able to actually create a surface off that data. So it's extremely easy. You just select your whole point cloud or whatever section you need to create a 10 surface off of it. And then it makes the triangulated model that actually represents those points. It's pretty lightweight. It's not as hard on a regular computer system that way. Most computers end up struggling with a lot of point data, but Collage is just set up in a way that it can handle that. And your regular CAD software, you wouldn't want to bring in all those points. You would just want that surface. You just need that elevation model of what's there to make your profile off of.
So that's where you'd use some of those tools in magnet collage, like the decimate point cloud and stuff like that, to really shrink that point cloud down. And kind of backing up a step. So with collage, the first thing we start with is a scan. So it's really not a point cloud, so it's easier to handle. We want to get that scan correct. And once that scan is the way we like it, then we can generate the point cloud. That way we don't spend all that time converting a scan to a point cloud. And then using all the tools that Topcon's put in there, like the decimate point cloud. And all that decimate's going to do is, say it's a perfect 2% cross slope and there's no change in it. It's going to take a bunch of those points out. That way we're not stuck with 300 points in that cross section because we don't need them. It's carrying the same slope. And it makes it very easy. You can also get orthos and stuff like that out of the collage program, which I'm sure Tyler will talk about as we move on here.
So we're almost done in magnet collage. Is there any last steps we need to complete before we get into the magnet office piece?
Before I put it into the magnet office, I would definitely want to get my orthos out. And basically it's an image of what the scan picked up that I can import into that magnet office. So I'll be able to see, because if I export just a tin surface from magnet collage, all I'm going to see is the triangle mesh into CAD or magnet office, anything like that. So what I like to do is bring that ortho in. That way I can see that intensity map that we was talking about, where the bridges are at, or where my striping's at for the road, stuff like that. It kind of gives me a better indication when I'm getting set up to do that design work in there.
Tyler, anything to add to that?
Yeah, the orthos actually do provide a great place to draw line work and things like that off of. It definitely makes it a lot easier. We've used them a lot with our drone stuff as well, just for conflict identification, just finding problem spots before we even have to set foot out there in traffic.
You can draw lines in magnet collage too if you want to. Collage is not really a CAD software. That's a data processing software. So you don't have the ability to put in an arc or something like that makes the data cleaner. You're just based off a point, so we'd have to put more points, and you're not a true radius at that point. So that's why we like to bring out that ortho and do all of our tracing and stuff in Magnet Office to really get what we're at. You can also bring in a CAD file into Magnet Collage if you wanted to kind of check to make sure your line work and stuff was lining up. So.
Tyler, what kind of files are you going to get out of Magnet Collage?
So you have a few different options. You could get LAS point cloud files where it's just the raw scanned points, or you could do a TIN file, a TN3 for Topcon, an actual TIN surface file. You can do volume calculations within Collage and produce a volume report as well. We actually used that recently just to quickly check an area actually against a drone surface to a scan surface.
And within Collage, you can also export your XMLs and stuff. So if you've got an engineer that you're working with or something like that that doesn't have the magnet product line, that can't bring in that TN3, you could actually export that XML and send it out directly. And I think Collage now, they've got a online viewer, so you actually don't have to own Magnet Collage. You can get like a free viewer, and you can send that link to an engineer or something that you're working with, and he could actually look at the data as well. So.
Okay. All right, awesome. So we've done our scan. We've worked with it, Collage. We've got it looking good. We've got it ortho. Now we're going to bring it into Magnet Office, right? Awesome. So what is Magnet Office?
So Magnet Office is Topcon software that they came out with. It's similar to AutoCAD, so it's a CAD-based program. Within Magnet Office, a contractor can do estimations, so you can trace PDFs, get all your volume calculation stuff to actually get an earthwork job. We can do 3D modeling in there. You can do survey calculations. It's pretty an all-in-one package. The nice thing about it is they've added the resurface module to it, which is what ties into the SmoothRide. And that's what kind of makes the whole SmoothRide system unique, is we've got our own set of software that's got tools specifically for that paving project. Instead of having to use other tools, maybe not designed specifically for paving to make a variable depth paving system, we can use those specific tools.
We're talking about the Magnet Office and Collage softwares because, again, when you purchase the SmoothRide, you do get these softwares as well as your scanners. So that's why we're kind of bringing it back in, talking about both the softwares, because it is important that you know, right, how to use both of these, because it's an important step in the process. So we didn't want to skip out on the data processing. It may seem like kind of the boring piece, or you sit back in the office, but it's definitely a key piece of making sure that you get your roads done correctly the first time. Right?
I mean, absolutely. I mean, all the work's done in the software with this system. I mean, collecting the data is very simple and very easy. There's not a whole lot to talk about there. And the paving piece, there's not a whole lot. The majority of the meat and potatoes takes place in that Magnet Collage and Magnet Office. getting everything set up for this project. So.
When it comes to building that surface, I mean, how do you get rolling with it?
So the first thing I'm gonna do is, bring in that surface and that ortho that Tyler was talking about earlier. Magnet Office requires you to have what we call strings. It's basically just a 3D polyline that's got an elevation on it. So I can either bring in the CAD file that, if there's been a survey already done on it, or I can trace my own if it's just a rehab project. And I'll use all the tools within Magnet Office to actually go down there and trace that ortho and put that edge of pavement, center line, edge of pavement. And that's what happens is that becomes my 3 strings that I do all my design work off of. I've got this really detailed surface that, we've made with a scanner up to this point. So I'm gonna actually drape that string onto that surface. So now I've got an exact representation of what's going on from station 100 to the very end of the road. And once all that's said and done, now I've got those strings, they're named, center line, edge of pavement, all that good stuff. We open up the resurface module within Magnet Office, and then that's where we can kind of get into our kind of next step in the design process.
So, Levi, walking through the step in Magnet Office, I mean, you guys at Benchmark Field Services, this is what you guys do. You build models day in and day out, whether it be, ball fields or parking lots or roads, right? This is what you guys do.
Absolutely. I mean, it's what we do every day.
All right, so Levi, you kind of talked about some of the tools within Magnet Office. I know specifically you mentioned resurface. Can you dive into that?
Yeah, so within that resurface module, that's where we kind of set up all of our paving parameters. So the whole point of the SmoothRide and this whole workflow and using all these components is to hit that rideability at the end of the day. That's what the paving contractors are really wanting to do. They're wanting to hit that rideability so they can get their DOT bonus, use the correct amount of materials, and basically make sure they have the right depth. So within resurface, the first thing that happens when you open resurface is it prompts us for the actual specs for that project. So I can say, what's your minimum thickness? What's your maximum thickness for that asphalt? What's your density? So we actually get the right tonnage for the asphalt, which I'll talk about later on. You can also set your slope bin for that rideability, and that allows us to kind of see areas where rideability is going to be an issue, and we can actually go in there and fix them. What I like the most about this Topcon software is they've put in all sorts of tools and stuff that allows me to make sure, one, that I'm going to hit my at least minimum depth. So when my inspector goes out and checks the asphalt, I'm going to be at that depth. I'm not going to go over my maximum asphalt because I don't want to run over on my tonnage if it's that type of project. And then the third thing I want to do is make sure the road is smooth within the DOT specs. So they've got tools in there like the average. It's basically like running an SAS system from Topcon. Instead of actually having 4 sensors on the side of the paver and paving as we go, I can actually set that up in the software. A little bit of a difference with it, when it's actually on a paver, we're stuck to that 40-foot length. That's all we can average together. Within the Topcon software, I can set it to 2,000 feet if I wanted to, and it would average over that. So it makes it very unique to kind of make sure we're going to hit everything. And they've got all sorts of tools in there like correct thickness. So if I do hit spots where it's too low, I can actually correct it and it'll move stuff around for me. And then another thing I like to kind of keep up with is it actually gives us real-time tonnage down at the bottom. So if I'm making changes, I can see how it affects my tonnage, whether it goes up or it goes down, and I can kind of keep a balance on my project, get the checks and balances going there.
And this is when you talk to me about sort of virtual paving.
Yeah.
I mean, this is essentially what you're doing. You're able to pave the project virtually before you pave the project. So when you hit that job site, that paving job, you've got all your material. You know exactly what you need because the system is telling you in real time as you're working on it virtually.
Yeah, and I mean, I can actually look at the longitudinal profile of that road. So I can see what my natural surface is, which came from that scanner data. I can see, what happens if I put 3 inches on that surface, or what happens if I put 4 inches in there. And then you start getting into your variable depth areas where you're averaging everything out. Topcon's got it set up where that longitudinal profile is made up of a bunch of different surfaces. Because I got a natural surface, I might have a milling surface, a paving surface, and a design surface, however it's going to work out. They set them up as different colors, which I like is really unique because if I can set my rideability number to 0.2, whatever it may be, I can look at that longitudinal profile and it'll show me areas where I'm not hitting that number. So my whole profile might be purple, but that area is red because it's not in that rideability spec. So as a contractor or a model builder, it gives me a chance to go in there and be like, well, hey, I've got something going on here. I need to make some changes to make it happen.
Actually, that's an interesting point, Tyler. I want to go back to you because you're more on the scanning side up front. He talked about either scanning a current road or one that's been milled. Does it make a difference to you? I mean, how do you set up your scans for milled road versus paving? Can you do that with the RDM1?
Yeah, I mean, you can pretty much, the setup process is the same. I want to use that same base setup as I did if I did both the after mill and, pre-milled surfaces. But really the setup is just the same as it would be any other scan.
Okay. Is there a particular project where the RDM1 stands out, or is there a project that's not so great for the RDM1?
If you're doing a tunnel or something like that where you're not going to have good GPS coverage, that would be something that I would end up using a different system for. But otherwise, if you have good, open skies and you're doing a milling project or a resurfacing project where you're milling and refilling it, the RDM1 is just going to make everything a lot easier. And the Magnet Office software will make it a lot easier, or really automated, to make sure everything's right and get you good numbers the first time through.
It was really developed to hit that, the rideability number like we've been talking about. But to do variable depth paving or milling, it doesn't matter. We can run it on the paver, we can run it on the milling. In the software, you can set it up where it's a 100% milling job or a 100% paving job or a mixture.
Okay.
So you can set it up for both ways. Or you could run it on your mill and go behind it paving. It doesn't matter. They've got it set up that way. So the big thing is, hitting that project that's got variable depth asphalt on it, and making sure that we hit the minimum and don't exceed our max.
So let's say you got your project, right? You virtually paved it, you're good to go. Do you get any kind of reports letting you know what you're looking at, what you need for your project?
You can actually export a material report. Comes out in a PDF, XML, or a notepad, which is going to tell me how much asphalt I have or how much asphalt that I've milled up that I've got to haul away. And then you can also get into the paving specific reports at that point. I can say every 50 feet I want you to give me a cross-section report, and basically it just tells me what my cross slope is from the center line to edge of pavement or whatever string I choose to hold to get that cross slope. And the nice thing about Office is we actually, when it goes through there, we've set our minimum and maximum. We may have areas where we're going to have to over-mill. We're going to mill too much, and it'll tell us those areas. So you can print out that report and actually say, at this station you've got to take out an additional 1/4 of an inch of milling, whereas we was only supposed to take out 4, we might be taking out 4 1/4. So it kind of gives a contractor where those areas are at. So ahead of time, hey, in this area I'm going to have to do some wedging, or this area I might have to do a little bit additional milling instead of just running it at a smooth rate.
Gotcha. And you can also calculate for compaction too.
You can. The paver is where all that goes into play. You can actually put that compaction number in there, and it takes into account, if we got to put 4 inches down, we might actually put 4 1/4.
So now, this report you've got, right? And you've got, which road's going to look like, the report. So now it's almost turned into an estimating tool as well.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So as I make a change, I know exactly what's going to happen to my numbers.
Yep.
So if I know that I can't exceed a certain tonnage, I know if I raise it to 4 inches to hit that rideability number, I went over on tons. Or you can kind of work with the engineer or whoever's in charge of that project. Hey, look, if I do this, this is what's going to happen. Well, what if we do this? I'm talking about your virtual paving term. Well, if we do this, this happens.
Sure.
That way I'm not actually out there just putting 4 inches down and hoping for the best. I'm kind of making a educated, well-made decision before it happens.
Sure. So now, now you're looking at saving money on the front end with surveying because you're eliminating man hours, you're increasing your safety. Now, as you virtually pave, right, you're getting your estimate reports. So when it goes to bid out jobs, now all right, man hours for surveying. Now you know what kind of material report you need. So you're saving money two ways already. And, we're going to dive into the third way. You're going to save money here in a second with machines. But Levi, is there anything else as far as Magnet Office? Once that report's done, are you pretty much ready to go? How do you export that into your pavers and millers?
Yep. So, once we've made that decision that, hey, we like our tonnage, everything's good, cross-section looks good, we're holding all the DOT standards that they're holding us to. The nice thing about doing this design work in a Topcon software is I can actually export straight to that what we call a Topcon project file. That's what would go on my dozer my paver, my milling machine, my data collector, anything like that I would use as a check. We can also export, CAD files and stuff like that if you want to send it to people for them to review. But we would definitely export that TP3 file to kind of get started. That'd be my workflow, is export my TP3 and go to work.
All right. So, guys, that was a lot of information on the data processing. I know it's a lot. Like Levi said, it's definitely the meat and potatoes of what you guys are going to be doing. Seeing this stuff is definitely going to make it come to life. So if you guys want to schedule a demo or have one of our sales reps come and sit down with you to look at the process, we're happy to do that. Just reach out to us. Again, benchmarksupply.com. All of our contact information is there. Or, of course, you can always call the number on the screen. We're happy to sit down with you guys and run through this from start to finish. Thank y'all for watching. We're going to come back. We got one more video. We're going to really dive into how to get all your data into the paving and milling machines, and then just do a real high-level overview. Because, again, if you haven't joined us for the first video or this one, third video is going to kind of wrap it up together nicely. So again, if you want more information on the system or you want a demo, just reach out to us at benchmarksupply.com or give us a call at the number on the screen. Thank you.